Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rosie Speaks. Today I have a very special episode. I have, it's Lairde. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Lairde.
Perfect.
It's
Lairde
the title for Lord.
Perfect. Lairde Odd and Lady Jane. Hi, you guys.
Hello.
And
Hello.
also, Baron Niko is here to help aid in interpreting.
Thank you.
Yay! How are
Yay,
you guys
much
doing?
yay. I'm doing fantastic. I'm really excited to be here.
We're doing pretty well. It's been interesting getting used to the COVID times, but you do.
Yeah, it's hard for everybody. It makes everything sort of really complicated because you really forget or you really don't realize how important it is to just be around other people. Like, even if you're not talking to them or interacting with them, if you don't get to just like be around people, hold on.
It's not good. It's just like laying there playing.
Baby lizards. Sorry, apparently we're having baby lizards in our house.
It's dying, but
They're having baby lizards. Can we have baby lizards?
No, we can't. Our two mighty hunters will make them trophies.
So yeah, it's been a whole adventure, this whole quarantine situation. But I'm glad that you guys are doing good and figuring it out. And I'm so excited that you guys were able to come on. It makes me really happy.
We're so happy to be here.
Really happy. Like you said, the isolation, it's really hard. And being deaf, there's a lot of deaf culture around socialization. I am so sorry.
This is the
And-
VA. I have to take this call. I'm so sorry.
So it's been really hard as a deaf person because socially there's a culture attached to other deaf, like just being around people. It's really an important part of our culture. So to be isolated, it's anti-deaf, and it's hard.
How have you been managing to keep interacting with the SEA?
I've done a few things. First, there's a lot of virtual interaction. I teach virtual classes. We have video chat, we call them cyber lunch, and we'll get into Google Meets and we'll have lunch and we'll chat, but it's got to be so much smaller. We can only have like a maximum of 4, or the thumbnails are just too small and you can't see the video. So if you can't see the sign, there's no point. Google Meets has captions, but they're like YouTube level, so but
I absolutely know the captions for Zoom. I was so excited. I got them to work yesterday and now they're not. Watch, in the episode when I go recording it, they're going to be perfectly there. And I'll be like, this is helpful for me now. Not at all. But thank you.
Welcome to my world. That's my whole COVID story.
That's crazy.
It's been really hard. I really respect my royals who went and hunted down a third-party program to add subtitles to our court videos.
Oh, that's super cool. I didn't know that was a thing that you guys did.
Yeah, it's new. They just recently started doing it. The last 2 virtual courts, they have added subtitles. And it was really cool. I finally got to real-time watch court, and that was cool. That was cool. But yeah, they had to go out and find it and make it happen. So thank you to my royals for loving us.
That's so cool. I'm so happy that there are that kind of inclusivity and accessibility tools that we can use right now. That makes me really happy. I know that so we've been trying for about 2 weeks to figure out a way to make the captions work for Zoom, and Her Highness Sarah and I were going through a couple of different like recording options and video settings, and just like nothing has the same quality as Zoom does. And then I got the captions to work, and I was just like, okay, I can do this. I believe in myself. We're gonna make this happen. But you know, things happen.
Oh, welcome to my world. That
As you
is
can
my
see,
every time.
this is my motto. Master Theo out of Kaid made that for me, and it's like my prized possession right now. Okay.
That is cute. I want one.
So, my first really big question for the both of you. How did each of you find the SEA?
Do you want to go first or shall I? Okay. All right. So for me, wasn't like it was a conscious choice. I wasn't driving by a park and I saw it or anything. My parents started dragging me along when I was around 3, and I've just grown up in it. And it's just always been there. It's always been in the background. At points in my life, I was busy and doing other things, so it couldn't always be in the foreground, but it has always been there.
I was in high school and I had just come out as gay. I just come out as gay. And my friend was like, well, you need to socialize. And I'm like, there's nowhere for me to be. I'm not like anyone else. So she grabbed me and took me to the SCA where all of her friends were. And it was home. So I have been there since Beltane of 1992, and I've loved this place ever since. I was hooked in 5 minutes.
That's amazing. Both of those stories are so cool. Jane, I have a similar story to you, because like I didn't know that the SCA wasn't a thing that normal people, like that everybody did, for a really long time.
Yeah.
For a really long time. That's amazing. And to hear, Odd, that you came in when you were at a place where you didn't think that you would be accepted, and you came in where you're with your friends and her friends and or their friends or whatever, and it clicked. Those are my favorite stories. I love those stories. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
So if you'd like another interesting story between us, so the very first time I met Blue, I was 16, and they were pregnant with their first child at an event. Third, excuse me.
Third kid.
And I was on the guard, so I was asked to go help this pregnant person, get them a chair, do all this stuff. And then, almost a decade later, we met outside of the SCA through a mutual friend doing LARPing stuff. And then we're like, oh my gosh, I remember you. You were the pregnant person I got a chair for like decades ago. And then I helped raise that kid.
Oh my God, that's the cutest story ever.
Yeah,
Oh.
she just graduated high school and will be turning 18 next month.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. Also terrifying. Is she your last?
Yeah, she's the last. She's
Oh.
the last. We're done. We get to go party now.
Almost done. There are 4 of us in our family, and I'm the middle. The twins turned 18 2 years ago, and it's really funny hearing the way that my dad talks about it. He was just like, "No, I did it. I have achieved adulthood. What next?"
Yeah, that's how I feel. That is exactly how I feel.
Oh my
We did
gosh.
it. Goal.
Yay! Oh my gosh, those are some amazing stories and incredible stories, and I love to hear.
That is my favorite SEA story, how we met.
That's so cool. How that's fate, and it's really funny because I have a couple stories like that in my own life, but like my partner right now, I'd known his sisters for years before him and I had met him, And it was really funny because I was in a really bad relationship when I first met him. And we were at one of our baronial wars. And he just like strolls into our camp like he owns the place. And a bunch of us had never met him. And so he like comes in and he's like talking to everybody and like acting like he belongs. And all of us were just like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, why are you, excuse me. And it took us all 3 days to put together that he was the brother of our friends. And we're just like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. And we had realized that we had always just missed him. He would be at the wars with us, but he would be there only for like 2 days because he was in the middle of graduating college, or he was a dance major, so he would have shows, and so he would only get to come to wars for like 1 or 2 days. And so it was lots of like, woo, 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 woo. So I love those. Those are my favorite. Oh my goodness, I love it.
That is cool.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been at events together for all these years, but we never like realized and put together who each other were until after we started dating. And we're like, oh.
It's just like I'm connecting all the dots now. Oh, that's so good. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So my next big question is, right now the world is a little bit chaotic, and that's an understatement. And our hobby and our little group is not unscathed from the chaos that's happening during COVID. And I was wondering how you guys have, I know we talked about it a little bit before we started recording, but how have you guys been coping or dealing with, I guess, the post-COVID SEA life with all of the new policy and officer changes?
You start, because I'm gonna cry.
It has been very, very different. I call it the ESCA. We're moving over to an ESCA format. And this is the first time, God, I've been doing this 30 plus years, and this is the first time I have seen anything like this, where all the interactions were pushed to online, not just this one little special thing just because. It's everything. And the other thing that has been interesting is watching the growing pains of a lot of these SCA lists. The SCA is very much of a format where there's give and take structure almost everywhere you go. Peers, non-peers, the whole thing. And we had some clunks. It was a little clunky getting into that transition to the ESCA. As a non-peer, I did feel like it was a little bit difficult for about half a minute to get our voice out there, but luckily we had some amazing peers we talked to, listened, helped open up some of the forums so people could talk, and now I feel like I almost have a bigger platform than I did when this whole thing started. It's kind of amazing.
That's true. I happen to be an officer in Sinagua. I am the accessibility and inclusivity officer. And as a person, as a member of the SCA, the virtual ESCA has been a struggle. The lack of captions, the lack of accessibility. I mean, I've really felt pushed, you know, but we've been fighting it. And that's good. Like I told you, my Royals found subtitling programs. So there are things that help. But as an officer, I really feel like I'm failing my members. I walk around asking people, how do I serve? And it's because with the politics, our members, they're having our little bubbles where it's safe. That's fantastic, but how are we going to get the people to the bubble? So getting from their front door to us, that in between, that's where they need us. That's where the SCA is needed, in my opinion. And I can't get there right now. I can't help them. And it's frustrating, and I hate that part. So it's a struggle for me as an officer. As a member, it's lonely. But we're working on it. Sorry. I miss
Don't
you guys.
apologize. We all miss everybody. Don't say sorry. One of my big things about this show that I'm doing is I want everybody to be kind to themselves, and remember that emotions are fine and feelings are fine, and there's absolutely no reason that we should be sorry for the way that we feel, because everybody's feeling it. None of us are alone. And coming from me, I know you guys don't know me very well. I don't talk about emotions a lot. I'm pretty like, oh, let's work and be calm and keep everything
And we're a lot alike.
here. I like to keep everything up here. And
Same. It's why it's hard for me.
oh, it's really hard, but it's really
Talk about
interesting.
anytime.
But it's interesting because Jane, you had said something about how in the beginning of this, there was a moment where it felt like non-peers didn't really have a place in the ESEA.
Mhm.
And it was a big thing because I had a lot of people down here in Kaid coming to me and saying, how come, like, oh, we're not invited to these things because we're not peers. We don't get to participate in these things because it's by the peers for the peers. And it broke my heart because I know like the people who have been doing these projects are dear to my heart. And I know that that is never what they would want, and that's never something that they would actually like say, and that was not at all the point. But the ESEA is a lot about perception. And it's very hard when we're all on the other side of the screen to confront perception directly. When we're talking to somebody, you can feel the way that they're talking. You can see the way that they're acting, and you sort of get a lot of context clues over what's happening by the way that they are in person. We don't get that anymore, which is leading to a lot of miscommunications and misinterpretations. So I was having a lot of people coming to me down here in Kaid and was just like, well, Kaid isn't participating in any of this online stuff, so we can't participate either. Or those are peers, I'm not a peer, I can't participate in that. And I was just like, that's not true at all. And I have this weird disassociation from that because I don't have, it's a peer fear pandemic, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
That I did not understand. And so I had to go through a bunch of different people. So I talked to Helga and Tulia, and I talked to my Pelican Larissa and my some of my other mentors and advisors, and we decided that there wasn't going to be a way to bridge the gap if as a peer, essentially. So I created this whole show situation.
I'm sorry, say that again. Bridge the gap between who?
The peers and the non-peers as a peer.
I am constantly talking to my peer friends. Having been in the SCA for like 30 years and not being a peer, I'm like one of the few people I know and hang out with on a regular basis who's not. So I've been asking them a lot, like what's going on, what's the issue, and a lot of it, at least talking to them, seems to be like a perception thing. Like why, like let's take a little bit more specific right now, like the knights, and some people perceive them as being the pinnacles of chivalry. Other one go, those dirtbags, those hypocrites, yada yada yada.
Yeah, it really depends on what shiv you're getting.
And being not a peer, like when I hear that stuff, I'm like, yeah, whatever, peers, that comes with the thing. But then seeing some of my peer friends like just come out of meetings in tears about it broke my heart. And I may not be a peer, but I don't want people being heartbroken in my society. I want to go do something about that if I can. So right now is non-peers, it's a time for us to be taking action. And when you go to an event, put your stuff on show. Right now, it's about trying to figure out how you can do it in the SCA and how you can bridge those gaps here.
As an officer, I absolutely support that. And I have seen the same problem. Like, my heart is just broken when I see our members saying that they don't feel like they could come and participate because they're the wrong color to have that conversation. I'm like, whoa, that is not okay. There should not be a list you're afraid to be on because you might, quote, say something Mexican. Hold up. That is not okay. And I have felt that. And I mean, it's not the same as like peer versus non-peer, but it's the same inclusion fear. They're afraid to have their voice and be supported. They're afraid to be recognized because their perspective is different. And as an officer, I've seen that. And the ESCA has really helped, I think, kind of bridge that. And Lady Jane has worked very, very, very hard to make lists where there's an equality of voices. And it has been a beautiful thing to come out of COVID. It's one of the beautiful things about my life.
I love hearing those things. I agree. It while it isn't the same like peer versus non-peer, to hear that the color of someone's skin or the preference of their love life or whatever it is that they have that makes them who they are is making them afraid to participate breaks my heart.
I'm working on it right now. I've got a friend from the trans community who's working on coming in, and his very first words to me is, "Oh, the SCA, I heard that place was super transphobic," and I'm just sitting there going, what? I'm one of the most predominantly trans people in my kingdom. If I dare not say the known world, I'm pretty well known.
I can see you're pretty well known.
I can see where maybe a decade ago, but like in our local area here in Central California now, yeah, we've got one or two transphobic people, but they tend to very much stand out because everybody is so not. Those kind of people are just really, they are so few and far between, but when there's so few of them, they just really stand out. What can you say? And it's hard when bringing in some of the new people, especially when dealing with these different minorities, when some of those people shine so brightly, unfortunately.
And another thing about the ESEA specifically makes those few people so much louder. Kaid is not
Oh, not my detractors, but that's separate.
Kaid has had their fair share of situations in which the internet has made things exponentially grow quickly. I don't know how to explain it. So the internet has a tendency to sometimes escalate things from 0 to 100 in 38 seconds. And that's the truth with just the internet in general. That's not an SCA specific or a list specific. That's how the internet works. And for our specific hobby, it does make the loud and the yucky comments hurt more, I guess, maybe because you see it instead of just hear it. I'm not sure, but it does seem more painful, maybe because we're all alone now when it's all happening. And it's broken my heart because on more than one occasion during quarantine, I've woken up to like screenshots on my phone of these are what these people have been saying on the internet about like, and this is the SEA, because I have always been a proponent of like, yes, we have bad apples. Every group over 10 is going to have a bad apple. That is the nature of human beings, but we aren't bad. And I've been pushing that idea for 4 years, 3 years now. I mean, not that I wasn't pushing it before, but I've been like aggressively, like, incidents have happened, yes, acknowledge it. Pain has been transferred, and that is shitty, and we are trying to get better, and we are trying to be different, but that doesn't make us bad. And it's really hard because there's a whole lot of people out there who are just like, oh, the SCA is full of racist assholes, or it's full of transphobic bigots. And I'm just like sitting here and I'm just like, okay, I don't want to denigrate from these people who have these feelings because they're super valid, but I want to fix them. I want to let me rephrase. I don't want to fix them. I want to fix our system so that it doesn't happen again. It does not happen to the next person. And it was very interesting. One of the questions from the SCA census that stood out to me more than anything else, and I didn't ever process it, was, have you ever had a crime happen to you in the SCA and not report it? And I've had so many and never said anything because I don't want to be the next gossip.
I don't report it because it doesn't do any good. I am a #MeToo survivor. I've been raped in the SCA 4 times. I talk about it. I've told my peers about it, but that is 20 years after it happened. When it first happened, it was quiet. I didn't tell anyone. I suffered in silence with only the few, like 3 people who knew, because you couldn't. Like, the culture wasn't there. And like now we talk about it and we discuss it and we fight for it. And I am so thank you for fighting. Thank you. But you're right. We didn't discuss it before. And that is why it's such a problem now. And that's why I told you, ask any question. I will talk about anything. Silence gives them power. I was quiet, and so they got away with it. Some of these people are knights now. And that makes me sad because I look at my shiv and I can't take pride in that. So I've decided to become a knight. I'm a squire. I'm not a knight. But I'm working towards that goal. And it's because I want to change that. Like Lady Jane has worked really hard on that and has really been an advocate for our support in changing the culture that silences that.
I come at it from a different perspective though. I'm coming into it as trans. So outside of the SCA, I grew up in rural Nevada. Like, it was tiny, it was very Red Wing. When I knew from a very young age I was trans, about 3. My earliest memory is going up to my dad and asking my dad if I could wear a dress and being told, no, boys don't wear dresses. And I was pretty heartbroken over it, but I sucked it up. As I got older, mid-90s, became a teenager, internet became a thing, did the searches. The first things I saw in trans people were not good. Let's just put it that way. It wasn't good. So I continued to bumble through my life, did the military thing. No, that didn't solve it. And then went into counseling for PTSD, where you have to be brutally honest with yourself about what's going on. And at that point, when I was sometime, I'm like, as long as we're being honest, so this trans thing too, I should probably go and handle that. So after I came out as trans, one of the biggest things I was thinking about is, why didn't I come out sooner? And I think back to the internet of the late 90s and reading all trans people are just like crazy men in dresses and pedophiles. And I'm like, well, I'm not crazy and I'm not into kids, so this obviously can't be me. So now as an adult coming back into the SEA, I want to be the role model for somebody else. I know for a fact had I seen good trans representation growing up, I would have come out decades ago and I probably would have been much better and much happier for it. So by being out there and publicly trans, I am doing it for the next generation trans people so they can see, look, you can do it. There is an example. It's not this crazy weird thing you read about on the internet. It's that fighter over there. It's the person in the camp next to you. It's your friends. It's your family.
As a deaf trans fighter, Lady Jane has really stepped up my game, and I am a much better face now for my community. I went from being what we call a small D, which means I'm deaf, but I live like a hearing person, to the big D, capital D, big deaf, where I am a part of the community and I advocate issues and I represent deaf perspective. And the whole reason for that is exactly what you said. We have to change the culture. We have to change the perspective. And the only way we're going to be happier and have better experiences is to have representation and role models that kids and younger new Skadians can look up and see and take pride in.
And it's not always easy. Like right now, I'm doing fine doing this show. I know when I go back and I watch it, I will be in tears about how my voice sounds. I don't care. I'm just glad I did it and that I got it out there. So
I'm gonna cry too for all the things I missed, or when I'll notice I talk over somebody because of lag, the interpreter lag. Sometimes I forget to wait for it. So I'll talk over someone, or I'll notice, oh my God, I was so deaf right there. And I'll get really embarrassed and I'll cry too. We'll do it together.
it's okay.
Well, I'm honored to have you both on together. It means the world to me. When so Her Highness Sarah and I have become really good friends, and she's been with me through this whole recording production process. And when I went to her one day and I was like, I haven't slept in 24 hours, but I have learned that if I have this many episodes, I can have 2 episodes a week every week for the next 50 weeks. And she was just like, okay, let's do it. And then the next day, we reached out to a whole bunch of people. So we reached out to you guys. We reached out to Asukara and Pharaoh. We reached out to Her Majesty Vera. We reached out to Duke Sean. We reached out to a shit ton of people because
Those are all fantastic names. I'm so impressed to be a part of that group. Thank you.
Of course, I'm so excited. It made me so, all of this is super exciting to me because I say exciting kind of ironically because it's horrifying. I am very I'm very service oriented. I'm very much, I need to do the thing to make the thing be fun, if that makes sense. And I was not having fun in the SEA before quarantine. It was like, oh, I'm having to get up and go, okay. Like, it was just a thing that happened. I was going out of obligation instead of because I wanted to. And it got to that point for me, and it had been there for a very long time. And it happens when you're a service-oriented person. Burnout is real. It's painful and frustrating. And I spent the first 10 weeks of quarantine doing nothing. Like, I was not on the internet. I was not talking to people. I did none of that because I was just like, I can't. I don't have the energy. I don't care enough. And when I first started doing these, it was like, okay, I'm going to talk to people that I know I can talk to. I'm going to talk to people that I've had this exact same conversation with before in person, but like, we're just going to now record it this time. So I started with a really good friend of mine, and then it went Helga, who's also a really good friend of mine, and then my pelican, and then more friends of mine. Everybody was just like friends of mine. But that is the timer for Niko. Are you still good?
Do you have time, Niko, or do you need to run?
What time is it now?
12:33.
I have about 10 more minutes.
Okay. So we have about 10 more minutes with Niko. We're going to ask one big question really quick while we have Niko here. How did you and Niko meet, and what's it like being Silent Heralds?
Oh, I love you, Niko. Here we go. Okay, so this started because we needed Silent Heralds in the West, but the deaf community was not happy. We're segregated, like deaf have a special segment that they have to sit in. So they don't get to sit with their friends or their families. They have to go sit in this special spot. And the deaf hate that. It's segregation. The other thing that was happening is there was no standardization to the language. So some of us would get a Silent Herald who knew 20 words of one ceremony, and that was it. And we would get none of the other things at court, none of the stories. We didn't know who was receiving the award or why. We knew nothing. No classes were interpreted, nothing. Sometimes when we did have a Silent Herald, it wasn't even ASL. I mean, I saw British Sign Language in On Tier. We're not even British. How did that get here? And it's because they're looking on the internet and they're just grabbing signs, not knowing it's not universal. There was no education, no standardization. And as a deaf person, I was so frustrated, I would just cry. I did not go to court. I didn't take up classes, or if I did, it was personal one-on-one, never an actual group. There are a lot of activities I just opted out of. So for 30 years, I was a surface player. I did nothing. So then my friend, who's a pelican, said, all right, we need to show them what the need is. Silent Heralds are filling a need, but it's not the deaf need. It was filling a need for hearing people to feel like they were meeting the needs of the deaf. So go show them. So I went up there to do it, and Niko, he was in the audience. He's all, I'm an interpreter. Do you need me? I mean, I'm a Silent Herald too. We just need to have one in the audience. And I'm all, the deaf hate that. Don't pick us out of the audience. And he's all, that's my job. That's what my head Silent Herald told me. I'm all like, well, good thing I'm deaf and I'm going to be doing this. And so I stood up and I started interpreting court because I can read lips like a champion if I can see you. So I did. I got up there. You can ask Niko, and I'm reading their lips and I'm interpreting for all these people as a deaf interpreter. And Niko, he said, I'll be your team. I was all, yay! And so he stood up and we team signed, and he did some cool deaf only things like tag team interpreting, where he ran and he stayed with the royal. And I stayed up at the front of the court, and he's interpreting down there and I'm interpreting it up here. So for the first time in the West ever, all of the audience got to see all of court. So all the deaf that were in the audience, we have hard of hearing, we have language support people, we have mute, we have social language needs. They all came up afterwards like, thank you, oh my God, that was fantastic. And so Sarah, your friend, Her Highness of the Mists, she looked at me and she goes, well, I run an agency, will you DI? And that stands for deaf interpreting. So after talking with Niko, he told me his experience was the same as mine, and he's a hearing person. I was like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. Okay, let's fix this. And so I went to work, and so now I have an online ASL program that Her Highness Sarah helped me set up, and I teach. We have 30 students right now, 18 are active. We have, we've added more languages. ASL is not the only language we interpret for now. We have just added Spanish. We make badges for deaf so that we can go out on the field and fight and be seen, so that Niko and other interpreters and volunteers, they can help us. In the West, we changed the name of Silent Heralds. They are not called that anymore because Silent Heralds are the voice of the royals. And so now we're muted emissaries because it's the voice of the people. Interpreters are supposed to be the voice of the people. So we have created that. I have now created a standard where I teach ASL pure, as in actual ASL signs, not British. And I am teaching all across our known realm so that we can get some standardization to the language.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Thank Niko. He helped me start that passion. He got me fired up and he said, no, go, you're right, go.
So before we say goodbye to Niko, I need to tell you both a story really quick. So I had a couple of people come up to me from Kaid who saw the two of you interpreting court at Great Western War together. And I had 4 separate people come up and ask me if I could have you on my show and if I could have the two of you on our show together. And I was so excited to be able to get both of you on. So thank you so much for both of you coming on and signing and interpreting and making this more accessible, or as accessible as we can get it in quarantine world.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
Yes, I'm right there with you. 70% of all communication is nonverbal. So anything we can do to add that back to our communication is a good thing.
That's amazing. And on that note, we're going to say thank you to Baron Niko, who is amazing for coming on and during his lunch hour and interpreting for us.
Thank you. Yay! We love you, Niko.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
fun.
Niko.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Goodbye.
Hopefully we can do this again.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.
So awesome.
I'm really excited that I was able to get him on. I know that he works during the day, so I wasn't sure he was going to.
He's a professional interpreter in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And now that he's not here to embarrass, I'm going to totally talk about him. He is really, really cool. Like really, really fucking, oh my God, cool, excuse my French. So he has videos that he made that teach ASL to the populace. He has taken on his own personal goals to teach common people sign so the deaf feel included, meaning we can have conversations at parties. He totally understood why deaf have a hard time in the SCA as a social experience. And he has worked quietly without wanting reward or recognition. He's humble.
Yeah, absolutely is.
Which is why I waited till he was gone. But you can go check it out. He has a bunch of videos that are really, really good. And his perspective is amazing.
As a
DI if he hadn't encouraged me. So.
Oh, that's so good. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, between him and Sarah, it took the two of them.
Sarah's going to kick you in the butt about it. Okay, so we have, I think I want to do 3 more questions. Is that good for you guys?
Yeah, we can do 3 more.
Yeah, I'm in. It'll take a little longer. Just have to wait for Allie to repeat it. Jane, for Lady Jane. I will get that.
That's okay. So my next big question is, how has the SEA helped you develop as a person?
For me, it gives me drive. When I was a kid, it was always about like, I want to go to school, I want to do all the things so I can get weekends off. It was all about, gotta get those weekends off so I can keep playing. And then striving on the fighter side, the chivalric ideals. I have just found that my life is better, and I'm a better person when I have those things around. So I'm pretty determined. I took a stick around. I took around a 5-year break back 2010 to 2015 roughly. Counseling for PTSD. I was an alcoholic. Had to get help for that, and then transitioned right at the end of that and came right back into the SCA.
Hit the ground running.
Yeah.
For me, it was always about the passion. I've always been a performer, and the SCA, I was always able to do that, even on the fringe. I've always been able to perform. I've always been able to get involved in that way. My family calls it a ham, but it's true. As I became an adult, let's use that term loosely.
You were so adult, don't even play.
I hunted for jobs where I could have my time for me as I defined it. So a week out in Oregon for a war? Sure, no problem. I want to go for this weekend and then next weekend too? Fine, my choice. I'm my own boss. And so I work at home on an online business so that I can do that. It also allowed me to follow my passion when I discovered that I had a passion for not just languages. So I've always had like this passion for languages, but to be able to be passionate about being deaf, that was always a label. It was always something that was stuck to me. Now I have pride in that. To have pride in my deaf lineage, the SCA gave me that. They gave me pride to be an individual and different. And that is just one of the coolest gifts I have loved getting from the SCA.
I am so excited to hear that. I love it. But first, I need to know what languages you spoke or speak or whatever.
So, way back in 1996, when I became deaf, it was from a car accident. A 2.5-inch shard of glass penetrated my skull and damaged the auditory nerve. 3 weeks later, I have surgery and they pull all the glass out of my head and I am left with no hearing. I was hard of hearing for the next 5 years while I learned how to read lips. The therapist, when I reached 30%, said, "Congratulations, you've graduated, finish, go read lips." I'm all, 30%? What about the other 2/3 of what people are communicating? Well, lip reading, you know, that's the max. The best you're gonna get is 30%. I was all like, haha! So I left and was really upset about that. And a cult leader found me, recruited me, and taught me how to read lips. His method used other languages to teach the mouth forms, the neck and muscle movement and tension. And so I studied the anatomy of ears, nose, and throat and chest and, you know, all the respiration stuff. And then I studied all these other languages. And I discovered I had a passion for it. So a few of them stuck. I studied Tamil, which is the first language of the planet. Sanskrit, which is also a first language of this planet. They both developed uniquely on their own. But I went from there into the European languages because English has a lot of Latin-based words. And so I learned Latin, German, French.
Don't forget your Spanish-speaking grandparents.
I knew French and Spanish from childhood. My grandmother immigrated from Mexico. So I grew up speaking Spanish in the home. So that one I already had from growing up. French I took in high school because I was rebelling against Spanish. When you have 18 years of Spanish, you want another language. I studied Latin and Italian and French again when I was learning to read lips. Spanish, of course, I kept from my family. Then we have, right now, Swedish. Swedish is the perfect lip reading language for me because of its double tone. I get to understand inflection now and practice that. So I'm really like focused on that one. We have Arabic, we have Bangladeshi, Swahili. Am I missing one? Oh, Gaelic. Gaelic.
I don't know.
Irish Gaelic for the nasalization, and Greek. And
Oh my
Greek.
gosh. My boyfriend would love to hear that you know Gaelic. He is all about the Irish Gaelic history. And of course, he had to do it with his SEA name. It's Brienne, but it's spelled with 12 N's.
Yeah. Welcome to Gaelic. They have this thing where consonants, they act like vowels, so they just have a lot of letters in everything. They also breathe while they talk, and that's in their spelling too. It's really weird. It's called
Polish
lending.
It's called what?
It's called lending.
Yeah.
You have broad and you have slender consonants. And the slender ones can be nasalized in a form called lending, and it's where you breathe while you talk. Gaelic does it.
So my education brain is so excited to talk to you about languages, but that'll have to be a different time. Because right now, I want to hear about your guys' individual experiences as fighters.
God, I started when I was 16. I'm 35 now. That's a lot of time period. Do you have anything more specific?
Do you want like general what experiences have been like, or do you want to know the whole story of how we became fighters?
So the becoming fighters is one thing, but I'm more curious as to were there struggles in your situation, in your experiences that you had to overcome?
Okay, so struggles. I had a couple of different struggles. I'm going to take one from my past, and then I'm going to talk about one from now. So I started fighting heavy when I was 16. Before I was fighting heavy 16, I was doing boffer from as long as I can remember. In the West, we used to have a boffer-only tournament called the Tournament of the Oaks. It was the big tournament that all the kids did every year. I participated in it every year I was able, and I won it the last 2 years I was eligible to fight in it. So I was all super excited. I already even gotten to meet the Royals because like winning that like little fighting event, they were like trying to, here's what it's like on the big side. You won a title. You're now like the champion of the Oaks. You're in charge of the kids, I guess. King of the kids for a year. So when I hit my got right into heavy fighting, and I had so many people telling me, hey kid, you're gonna be a Duke by the time you're 21, you're gonna get knighted in no time, you're gonna win all these lists. And at 17, I went to quarterfinals in a freaking principality list for the coronet, scared everybody, had been scrambling for the books, because at 17, here I am at quarterfinals being like, hey guys, 2 fights from winning. I did not win, luckily, thankfully. But after that point, like the years kept rolling by, and I'm not making it to semis. I'm not making it to quarters. And it started like getting into this thing where it started eating at me. Like I'm letting all these people down. They thought I was going to be great. They told me I'd be a Duke by the time I'm 21. Now I'm like 23 and I still haven't even made prints. Like And that combined with like PTSD from doing a tour in Iraq during that time period and everything else, like it crumbled. There was a point right when I started my 5-year break where I swore I was done with the SCA. I would never come back.
Took us a long time to get you back.
And I just couldn't stay away. It was my home. I dream about it. Blue would say, well, you say you're quitting, but should I get rid of your armor? I'd be like, no, don't get rid of the armor.
You say you're quitting, but you talk about it all the time. You won't let me take anything. And like, put it in the garage away. No. It is in our living room in the corner. I
couldn't give it up. Took the 5 years, transition, came back. And the struggle when I came back was much different than I thought. I made no attempt to hide who I had been, like 25 years under like dead name and everything in the society. I came back, I was wearing the same surcoat. I mean, you know, the SCAs, we have the same people here for like 20 years. So, hey, old friends, how's it going? I'm back. This is me. One of my favorite stories coming back that kind of sums up about how my experience has been being trans in the SCA is going to my very first fighter practice after transition. And I see an old friend from back in the day who's like, oh, hey, so did you get the snip? Like right in front of my entire shot.
Yeah.
To which I responded, why? Do you want to fuck me? I turned bright red. Everybody laughed, and after that moment, nobody has asked me those stupid questions in public in the SCA. It only took the one time.
Thank fuck. I'm mortified. Oh my God.
I laugh about it. I'm still friends with the person who did it. But here's the thing. Old me would have thought that was funny. I was not a good person before transition. I was pretty ignorant. Not gonna lie, I was pretty dang ignorant. Rural Nevada, yay. So luckily I have done a lot of growing up in the last 5 years.
And we all have. That's one of my favorite stories. I love that story. Watching that guy turn bright red when he thought he had gotten her was fantastic. So I'm going to start my story with a quote from my good friend, Tiffany. She said, and it's perfect, "You have a two-front war. I get it." And she's right. I'm trans. And I'm not even binary. I'm not a boy. I'm a queer. My pronouns are they, them. So I have to fight for my identity. I have to tell people that queer does not mean trans. I am trans and queer. So I have that total trans front, but I also have the deaf front, where I'm a deaf fighter. You cannot treat me like generic fighter X. I do not fit that mold. And it will be wrong every time. And none of those things fit me. They don't work. There's no communication on the field, and they look at me and they're all, but you're deaf. You can read body language.
In armor?
Yeah, no, you ask her. I've been told that so many times, how because I'm deaf, it's some great advantage on the field because I can read the body language. I'm like, if you know French, that does not mean you can understand Swahili. Sure, some of the words are the same, but the language is fucking different.
Not to mention people's body language in armor is drastically different from when they're not in armor.
Different.
In armor, somebody peering over my shoulder in public would be like, I feel like they're trying to get up in my space and push me back. In armor, it's, what are you trying to tell me?
Right? And like their body's blocked. It's in this block form. So like a lot of the movements I see out of the shoulders and the chest, there are chest plates and pauldrons there. I can't read your lips very easily because gorgets cover the neck where half of my crap is. Cheeks are covered, but even in open-faced helms. So I get this little, could you lip read anything in this little thing right here? No, nobody can do that. It's not a thing. And lip reading, body language, reading that on the field, sure, there's fight or body language, but I still have to learn it. It's not the same body language that people use out of armor. It's totally different. There's there's no visual aids or support, so you don't know what's going on in the field. If it's a tournament versus a war, you have no idea what the instructions are. So I am lost. I cry. I literally do. And that is just to get on the, and that is just once I get to the field. Getting to the field is an hour-long process of me falling over because I have no equilibrium. There's no connection to my inner ear. So when I go to put on greaves, I will fall out of a chair. If my stuff isn't balanced right, when I stand up, I fall over. So I'm injured before I ever even make the field.
There's also another issue that affects us both
I
kind of want to bring up here too, which is something that we have both had to deal with. Is when I put on armor and I walk out there, there are people that have told me, "Why are you making a political statement? Why don't you leave the politics at home?"
Because people like me can't get on the fucking field. I'm so sorry.
The thing, and like that's the thing, them being a death fighter, I have watched marshals brush them off being like, look, I don't have time for your like little political show or whatever's going right now. I have actual people who need inspections. I've seen it happen.
I've been told I'm not dedicated enough and not able to get on the field and denied inspections because I'm deaf.
And it's one of those things that like I had trouble. We searched far and wide throughout the known world till we could find a couple of knights who might have an experience similar to that they had to go through. Because I've gotten, like I said, I've gotten a political thing. Why are you out here making a political statement? Luckily, the one thing that I came across almost immediately was the gendered wording and the Kapora realizing that is really the only avenue they've got to hurt me through the rules, so we need to change that. So we went and worked on the Kapora.
Yeah.
And when I say me, I mean anybody who's in the trans position. The way it was worded before with all the opposites, you have to fight for somebody of the opposite gender. Well, what's the opposite of queer?
There is no opposite of queer.
If I'm fighting for somebody of the same sex, I had to go get dispensation from the crown. But that means at some point, somebody has to determine sex. So who's going to be our gender police? And the instant I started asking those kind of questions, people were like, no, you're right, this needs to change. We do not want gender police on the field. I'm like, well, here's the problem though. You got this like opposite wording. What happens if I'm fighting for, let's say, my friend Darren, he's male. I'm fighting for Darren and the royalty decides that, no, we don't think trans is a thing. You're a guy, so you're a same-sex couple. How come you didn't come get your dispensation? You're gone.
That happened, not in the West.
That has happened.
Not in the West, but it has.
Did not happen to me, but it has happened to somebody that I know in the community. And it caused people to be terrified to fight for a while. Like, especially in the trans community. Like, I don't want to go on a list and have some king freaking do this thing to me. So we brought awareness to the issue. We went out, we proposed the change. We just everything we could to do it calmly and be like, there's an extra hurdle that only happens to the gay and trans community. Can we remove this? And we were successful.
Which I am really grateful for because I couldn't do tournament. It wasn't until that they changed the Kapora that I was allowed to fight in tournament.
Well, I mean, like, nobody would say no, but we always had to go have the awkward talk with the royals about, like, how do you perceive us? Do you have an issue with us being in your list? And I'm like, I never had to do this stuff when I was, like, perceived as being cis and straight. I'd just be like, yo, I'm a guy. Yep, I'm going to fight for this girl, your majesty. You cool? And they'd be like, yeah, totally. Go do your thing.
Being deaf, I can't believe I had to explain why lineage is so important to the deaf community. We're a culture without a country. You can't go to deaf land. So we don't have the regalia, the history, all of that. So when we meet deaf, there's questions. It's like a job interview. Who do you know? you're deaf. How many deaf in your family? Where'd you go to school? Was it a deaf school? And they just take this history so that they can tie and hold. We know. I had an interpreter come out from Gallaudet who's so excited to finally meet me. I'm all like, what are you talking about? How do you even know about me from a college on the East Coast? A deaf-only college, but still.
It's one of the things the
And
SCA
it's
has in
because
common.
they talk. And it's just like the SCA. We talk. And so we take our histories with us and we hold it. So when I went to go find deaf fighters, should be easy, right? DeafNet, we just hit the deaf web. Ding, ding, silence. There was nothing the first 2 calls for deaf fighters. Finally, at the end, I find 4 across the whole country. 4. You want to know how many of them made knights? 0. Only 3 of them ever made squire. To become a squire is a big deal in the deaf community. It's a huge deal. And hearing people don't understand, I had a duke tell me, well, squire's not really a title. It doesn't matter. It's not an important thing. So we don't keep records on that. So who knows if we've had deaf fighters? We probably have. I'm like, guys, if you've never had a deaf knight, then yes, being a squire is a big deal. 54 years we've been in society and we've had 3 deaf squires.
So for the trans community, I know we have some trans knights out there. I do not know how of any, and if any ever watching, please hit me up. If you are trans and you were knighted while being openly trans or being out, because every trans knight I've run into, oh, I came out years after the fact. They voted me in when I was in the closet. So it is still, as far as I know, a hurdle that we are still out there trying to break down.
Well,
Deaf fighters.
you're going to do it. I believe in you. You're going to do it. You guys are going to do it. I believe in you. And you know what? So it's very interesting. Sorry, I'm going to tangent really quick because I know that the peerages are super different across the kingdoms. And the culture of the different kingdoms are very different. However, for those of you who don't know, you can write letters to the orders in any kingdom around.
Yes, do this. I have written award letters for Ontarians, for Caedians,
For Westies, Outlanders.
Yeah, I've done Baron Niko.
Always there is some way to praise the praiseworthy in the SCA. Go out and find those avenues. Praise the praiseworthy.
Yes. And if you know a deaf fighter, please let me know. I'm trying to collect lineage. We've got a deaf fighter who's in Order of the Bear, and that is the biggest deal in the deaf community because we didn't even know we had a deaf with a title. So
what's that mean? What is the order? What's the Order of the Bear?
Order of the Bear. In Mid-Realms, we have a deaf fighter, and this deaf fighter became part of this order. And this is a fighting order for war fighters, and it has to do with being a general and leading on the field. So, yeah, it's a really, really prestigious award for a deaf person to get that, because not only does that mean that they had to be an accomplished fighter in a war in order to even be in the running, they had to lead, which means people followed them. Usually the deaf are not leaders. Go look at what awards we have in the SCA. We've got tons of pelicans, tons. Deaf do service, okay? We know service.
Oh, yeah.
And so with tons of pelicans. There are several laurels who are deaf. And again, I mean, sign language is an art in itself.
Oh, yeah.
So tons of that. You look at what we have accomplished in the fighting realm, and it is very hard to get equality or recognition. And so to have someone who is a leader on the field and can lead troops, it's a big deal in the deaf community. We are very proud of them.
There's a gentleman out here in Caid whose name is escaping me. He is a fighter. He's a very large dude, and he is deaf. And I cannot remember. Like I literally just texted my pelican. I was just like, I need to know what his name is right now. And so hopefully she'll get back to me. But he is just the sweetest man. And
Are you talking about James McGill?
yeah, I don't know what his SEA name is.
4 of us, okay? 4. That's Def Web right there. It's like a spider's web.
It's amazing. I can't remember his SEA name to save my life. And I'm the worst about it because Facebook. But
everybody on.
Yeah,
oh
I
my
don't
God.
know his name. That's his Facebook name.
But he just won. So we have an unbelted tournament out here in Kaid. He's a squire out here, and I believe he won this past year. And
that's cool. I gotta hit him up.
And it's the biggest tournament in Kaid by far. It is probably 5 times bigger than our crown lists.
I will hit him up because yeah, we're taking a collection of that for recognition.
Because yeah,
is big on lineage. SCA is big on lineage.
Oh yeah,
we're making enough lineage.
And I believe now I don't hold on. Actually, maybe I'm friends with him on Facebook. Maybe it's on Facebook. So please hold while I Google it because I think he was given a grant level award for fighting out here in Kaid.
He didn't tell me?
I think. Don't quote me. Please hold while I Google it. Because I believe I go to a lot of events, so it's really hard for me to keep track of everything. But I am pretty sure.
He's so modest. Like he talks like he's the only thing he told me he had was he was a squire and that Lord Defender. He gotten Lord Defender once. Like
Lord Defender once.
Right. I want Lord Defender. But yeah, no, so like he's really modest. He's very sweet. He won't brag about himself much. Not unless you like point blank him. You gotta like corner him.
He did win unbelted this past year. So it is our biggest tournament. Awesome. And of the last it's a big tournament here in Kaid, and a lot of people go, you don't always remember the winners, but you remember but it's a really good place to show. However, of the last 5 years of winners, 3 of them are now knights.
Oh, go James! Go!
So I thought that I wasn't sure if you knew about that our kingdom culture. So
no,
I had to share that with you.
That is cool.
Out here in the West, we've got the 2 principalities, Miss and Sinagua. I know Sinagua does an unbelt only list for Lord Defender, but those are lists that it sounds like a lot of unbelts up here would look at it that same way. Like, if you win Prince or Princess of Sinagua by your own right, it's not a guaranteed you're going to get knighted, but there are very, very few of them walking around that haven't been. And at the very least, it gets you talked about. It gets you that franchise, they call it.
Yeah, they call it franchise.
Get you some of that franchise fighters going lists.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I love that as a whole, we're working towards bettering our inclusivity and our equity around everything. I love that we have fighters who can come of any like background. I love that there's a space for deaf fighters.
Starting to. We're working on that.
Baby steps.
We're starting to, and that is very different than 5 years ago. 5.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I agree.
I look back on like my first tournament in awe. I remember doing I went out into my first tournament back after transition, but I go out to the Roses field, which is a tradition here in the West. It's pick up fights. You go fight. Winner takes a rose to somebody, or the loser takes a rose to somebody of the winner's choice. But I went out there and I did roses, and I had a couple of hot fights, and I remember walking off the field and somebody making a comment to the person next to them as I'm walking by being like, they only won that fight because of what's between their legs. Nobody has said that to me in years, thank God.
Yeah, my first tournament, I've actually all of my tournaments, I've fought in roses 3 times. I have had 1 fight in 3 tournaments. I've literally tried to get fights in 2 rose tournaments, but because I'm deaf and deaf culture in the West is uneducated, I was not able to get fights. So I went through 2 tournament of roses without getting any fights. It was my 3rd tournament of roses. I finally got 1 fight. That is something that is really changing. Our King Uther, is taking it as his personal mission. I freaking love this guy.
Yeah.
He has taken his personal mission to make sure that we have different communication on the field so that all people are included. And he has made it his personal mission to take on marshals who are uneducated about how to get deaf onto the field.
We had some breakthroughs at Estrella, if you want to call them breakthroughs.
They were.
So we've described some of this behavior, and I see the faces you make when we talk about them, and I
know, I feel bad.
I'm like, I swear it's not that bad now, but
No, this is.
they had a couple of nights from their kingdoms, from our kingdom, see what was going on,
Yeah.
watch the marshal play the game.
Watch the marshal tell me I couldn't get inspected and couldn't take the field.
And then would be like, well, I haven't been inspected yet. No one said anything. Hold on, watch this. Pop their helmet on, walk by, and the marshal just
waved them onto the field.
And they're like, whoa. You just stopped that deaf fighter and told them that you didn't have time to inspect nobody, that they couldn't go, but you just hand waved me because I got a pretty piece of white cloth on my hip.
Yeah, he's like, well, you're a knight. You know better. That they're deaf. So and it was they straight up owned that it was purely because I was deaf and they thought I was a pain in the ass.
But it was good because now we have progress. It's no longer like I've seen this, but when it's just the 2 of us talking about it,
right, nobody
really
believes, right? It's my wife, right? So of course you're gonna say whatever to support your spouse. So she didn't get as believed, if that makes sense. It wasn't weighted the same. So when this other knight, who's not my knight, sees it, he's like, no, runs right up to my king and goes, did you know this is happening? Watch this. And then my king was in. My king was like, no, that is not how it's supposed to work.
I have been so grateful for the turnout of support. It is very rare in my career that I've seen this kind of support come out. So I'm really happy to have it. And thank you everybody out there who's listening.
Yes, thank you to all the great support.
And these things happen and it sucks, but I really feel like if we talk about it, we get the education out here, they'll happen less. When people said the dumb comments to me early on and we're like, yo, that's not cool for X, Y, and Z reason, they stopped happening.
I'm wondering if maybe we just need to have a different. Kaid is not having the same luck as the West is, or as you are having. I have a bunch of friends who are trans and LGBT of some flavor and feel like they're being kicked out of our kingdom because we don't have acceptance. We don't have support. Or at least that's what they feel. I don't necessarily.
We're working on that. That is exactly what we're fighting. And I'm very grateful to our royals. When you talk to Vera, this is one of the things that she has been really on, her and Uther both. Their reign has been all about making inclusion happen.
So to all of my LGBTQ plus siblings out there, my biggest advice for y'all, stand your ground, be big, take up space, be seen. If they want to come pick a fight with you, how is that in any way polite or doing anything along the lines of our society? Stand your ground, be that awesome shining person we all know you can be, and just let them self-destruct. It is the best thing you can do.
It's true. It's true. All these stories I'm telling you about this crap, I'm telling you so that other people will know.
Back. Yeah, it sucks. You can go home. I'm not telling you that this stuff isn't going to hurt and you're not going to go home and cry about it.
You will. You'll cry. You'll cry years after it happens. I've been crying throughout this show.
But take up the space. Do not let them run you out. If you stand your ground, your allies will flock to you.
And that's why we have emissaries and not heralds. We have, we are the voice of the people. People have a voice. Use it. Have
And
your
for those of you who have been fighting in, for those of you who are watching, who have been fighting and who have been the loud voices and have not been heard, come to me. Because for whatever reason, people are listening to me. I don't know why. I'm just some random chick on the internet. But apparently, people want to hear me talk. So come to me, and I'll put you on this side of my screen, and you can talk. And I'll tell people to look their fucking faces at their fucking screens and listen. And I've done it. I'm doing it with you guys. I've done it with my quad of non-peers. And I don't, hold on. Sorry, I'm shaking because I'm like really passionate about this. For those of my friends who have been the loud voices for a long time on their own, you're not alone anymore. It may feel alone, like Lady Jane said, you may feel the pain, it's gonna hurt, it's gonna suck, but if you don't feel like you can stand your ground alone, we will come for you and we will be there with you. Because for whatever reason, the internet has decided to listen to this show and watch this show. So fuck it, I'm gonna use it as a platform to be aggressively accepting.
That is
You
awesome.
are awesome. You are rock. You are the best kind of people, in my opinion.
You are amazing. Thank you. And yes, having support at your back and a voice. As someone who's really struggled to show people that what I've been trying to say, I know that sometimes speaking for yourself, you can't always be understood. Sometimes you need someone from the other perspective to translate.
Also, guys, gals, siblings, people out there watching, folks with an X, just, you got allies here. You've got a lot of allies. You've got people that are going to stand with you. You're going to hear about the bad instances way more than the positive instances. I have 2 to 3 positive instances come every day out of the SCA. Focus on those. Don't worry about the rest of it. Just go out there and do you.
Yeah, be proud, be you.
And you know what? That's the perfect note to end on. Be you, stay positive, find your magic, and fuck racists and homophobes and transphobes and all those assholes in the world.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm very anti-bigotry.
Me too. Me too. So thank you, everybody. I had such a great time.
Thank
Having
you.
us.
I loved being here. Thank you.
Yay! Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
It was a
Okay.
lot of
See you guys next week. Bye.
fun. Bye.